Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, dancing all around. Throwing as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, we're back with season 2 of Around the Indoor Football World. We are joined by a couple special guests today. Y'all know Krish and I, we are on this channel basically every day, all week long, it seems like. But below us, we're joined by Gabe Martinez and the well-known Ducon from Arena Football Statement. Guys, how you doing this morning?
Doing good, Sam. Krish, good to see you guys. Good to see you, Gabe.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us. Pleasure to meet you. Krish, first time, Ducon, first time. So glad to meet you guys and glad to talk some football.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us. We were going to be joined by some guests today. It sounds like they have slept a little late. That's okay. We completely understand. It's an early morning, early show. So I definitely know that, I almost slept late. So I completely understand. But we're going to go ahead and get into some topics today. This show by design is kind of designed to cover the big 3 indoor football leagues. To clarify, there's a difference between indoor and arena football rules. That's why this is around the indoor world, and we will not be covering the AFL on this show. Just to be clear, we'll be covering the AIF, the NAL, and the IFL. For those of you at home that are a little bit questioning the fact that we're covering the NAL on this, they are now playing more indoor style rules this season, so that's why they're on this show and not the arena football show. So just to get that all out of the way, for anybody who doesn't know, these 2 men below us have deep ties to the sport. If you haven't checked out Arena Football Statement, you could pause this right now, go over there, watch one of his videos, come back. We'll probably still be talking. Trust me, you will not regret it. And then Gabriel down there, he's an agent with Pro Level, and prior to that, he was with the Billings Outlaws, which is, I think, when we actually became connected, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so both of these guys have very deep ties, a lot of knowledge to lend to us this morning. So thank you everybody for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right in with, like I said, the AIF. Big news out of the AIF this season before the season kicked off was the broadcast package that Amarillo got. Krish, I know you're tied pretty well with Amarillo. Did you want to kind of kick us off on that subject?
Yeah, Amarillo, I mean, they've been making big moves all offseason, obviously, with the broadcast package. They have a really innovative team. You know, Coach Crans and everyone down there, they do a great job. They dedicate 24/7 to this. I can say that. I mean, there's times where Coach Crans will text me at 3 a.m. in the morning. Like, he's really locked in. He was there about 2-3 months before the season started. He lived in Las Vegas. So he drove all the way from Las Vegas to Amarillo. And he was living there, and he was working till really late at night. Like, he does sponsorship meetings. He does everything. He does a lot. The owner of the team, Robert Reyna, he's young. He's an entrepreneur. He was in the military, so he has experience as well. I think Amarillo is doing everything the right way. I mean, they have a great housing setup. If you see the housing setup down at the Cactus Cove Inn, it's one of the nicest housing setups I've seen in a while for an arena team. So Amarillo is doing it right, for sure.
Ducon, I'm curious about your thoughts on this package. I mean, obviously, we all want to see the days where arena football is found on every channel on TV once again. But this was kind of, I felt, a big announcement for a league that was just returning in 2024.
Yeah, I have to resound what Krish said. I think that from a business standpoint, Amarillo's done everything right. The sponsorships that they've got, and yeah, Kranz, he's been so busy. I've seen him pop up everywhere. Great sponsorships, and really to make it in this industry, that's what needs to be done. I mean, that's where a lot of the actual operating budget comes from for these teams is sponsorships, and the broadcast package that you brought up, I was pretty floored about it when Amarillo announced how they were going to be broadcasting things. Now, I don't know if that's still going. If you guys have more insight on that, I don't know if they're still having it play on. I think it was Paramount Plus and CBS. I can't remember the exact broadcast partners, but if it's still going, that's great. I don't know if they're still doing that though.
Yeah, the press release they put out wasn't really specific, but the CBS is the local CBS. It's not like I thought it when I first saw it. I'm like, oh, CBS app. So I looked for one on the CBS app, not on the CBS app. It's the local CBS. So you have to go to the website Amarillo CBS and you'll find it.
Okay.
Good information for anybody there at home trying to catch Venom games. Gabe, you can give us a little bit more insight in the inner workings of the indoor football world. How tough is it to relaunch a team like that and kind of be a part of a staff that's building from the ground up like this?
Extremely hard. I'm actually only about an hour and a half from Amarillo where I live. So, when I was with West Texas, we the first year, I mean, that league was us playing Amarillo 3 times. And that was kind of the end of their last regime. And they, of course, they weren't the Amarillo that we remember from the past, where they were competing with Duke City and the CIF and really, really competitive, but still a really good team. They have always taken care of their players. Stephanie, their previous owner, was always, really involved. I think I don't know Mr. Reyna very well, but I've gotten to know Coach Kranz really well. He's a good guy. Everyone can see he can sell ice to an Eskimo, right? Like he's been signing deals left and right. He's constantly on social media. This is our official sponsor for this and that and that. I mean, you're right. That has to be there. One thing that with that team when they first got announced with the new ownership and him coming in, he was, I think, only officially announced as their GM at the time, and they were still doing like a head coach search. I'm an hour and a half away, so I applied, and they called me back for a couple different positions, and Kranz and I talked a little bit, and it just didn't work out in the end. But at that time he had told me he was taking over as a head coach, and gosh, I can't remember his name. There's a guy that helps Hal Mummy with his air raid. He was a coach with Birmingham. I can't remember what team it was. Anyways, they were looking to bring him in as the OC and quarterback.
AJ Smith?
No. He's he helps Al with all his air raid stuff. It'll come to me maybe, but he was talking about bringing him in, and I was like, oh wow, like, and you saw a lot of the stuff that was happening initially. There was some like USC guys signing, and I don't know where that went because, of course, you saw last week's game. Those linemen weren't the same linemen, but I know they were also sick. Like he had a bunch of guys that had come down with some type of flu or something. But yeah, we just had 2 guys sign there as well on the defensive side, so made me look, watch a little bit closer, and it's going to take time. The biggest thing is they're financially stable. They got great housing, like Krish said. They got good food sponsors and everything, and those guys are taken care of. As long as those players are taken care of, you have no it's a great arena. That same arena's been there. The turf, the uniforms, hate them or love them. They have brand new uniforms. Everything is top notch. So that's what you look for when you go forward with it. And just like Corpus, we were heavily involved with Corpus this off season, and their president down there, his name is Hector Garza.
Garcia.
Garcia. He's been a great guy. He's been really well to communicate with us for needs, and we were able to actually help kind of shape that league contract. They had some verbiage initially about not letting guys move up, and we noticed it and brought it to them, and they brought it to the league and got it fixed. So that kind of stuff is always encouraging, because you want people to take the help and use it the right way. And I can't really speak for much on the other teams, because these two teams are here in Texas, and we just I deal with them specifically a lot. But Columbus looked good against Amarillo, and they had to go play in Amarillo that game. That's tough from a Columbus team from the past couple of years that couldn't really do that. So we'll see the same thing with Mississippi. Hopefully, I hope they travel well and are able to host home games really well. The setup is good, but longevity is what you're looking for. You want to see a team in a league that looks the part and keeps looking the part. It doesn't fall apart after a few weeks.
Agreed. And it seems like so far Amarillo's done a lot of things right. We're going to transition a little bit. We've been talking very heavily about the good things about Amarillo. I wanted to transition just a little bit to the one piece of negative information that came out just before the season began, and that was the Albany River Gators. Ultimately, I don't know if they've technically folded, but they ended up leaving the AIF. Krish, once again, you're kind of my go-to for the AIF information. What happened here that you know of? Don't get yourself in trouble, obviously, but why are they no longer a part of the AIF?
The simple answer is they just didn't have the money, and they were trying to make it up for having so many tryouts, and that's the reason why you saw them having 5, 6, 7 tryouts, because they were trying to make up the funds. They didn't have an arena secured. They didn't have an arena deal in place. They didn't have nets. They didn't have anything necessary to play. And the players, I talked to over 8 players on that team, on the phone for hours. And some of the stuff they told me was shocking, like the promises. And, everyone on Facebook seems so concerned about false promises, but they're not willing to address the real false promises happening, which is, teams like this who, fly by night. This team wasn't ready. They were scamming players. They were lying to players. Coach showing up 2 hours late to a tryout. Like, stuff like that is not professional. And so that team was never professional. I knew that when I saw the social medias. I knew that when I saw certain things, which it's complex when you really go into it. But I don't expect them to be back, without a doubt, ever. So.
Fair enough. Krish was in on this weeks before it ever happened. He was trying to tell us without telling us in our group chat, basically, really trying to toe that line without actually giving us the information. But I'm curious of your thoughts on this, Ducon.
Well, I think this is just another one of those situations where people come in, they get excited about the football aspect of it, but they don't understand the business aspect of it. And this has happened time and time and time again. And I try to tell people, if you plan on starting a football team, realize it's a business and treat it like a business. And all throughout the offseason, Albany would not announce a single sponsor, which to me spelled doom for them right off the bat. And that's why I liked what Amarillo was doing and Corpus Christi and some of these other teams coming in, is because they were announcing sponsors. They were showing that they were actively getting a budget to operate on. And they were actively treating it like a business, and Albany was not. And so I kind of saw it coming. There's Fayetteville was the same way last year, when they ran out of money mid-season. it was just the same thing. They were signing players for a ton of money, and they were not signing any sponsors. They got way too late of a start on it, even though they did get an arena, which was nice. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what Krish had to say, I would have to say, yeah, they just weren't ready.
Unfortunately, that happens all too often. Like you said, I would definitely heed what Ducon just said as far as, consider the business aspect first. I hate to say football is secondary, but it should be. Football should be the easy part of that equation, quite honestly, because at that point it's hiring a coach and letting him do what he does. So I honestly, it's hard to watch players go through this situation, and we're about to talk about another one with the NAL. But at the end of the day, this is why I always say, you should vet your employers, not just your employees. So if you're a player out there and you're watching this, make sure you're doing your research on these teams that you're going to sign with. Don't just necessarily sign every contract that comes in front of you. And I'm sure Gabriel would testify to this wholeheartedly. You have to look into the organizations you're going to be playing for, because you just don't know, what's going on behind the scenes on a brand new team. If it's an established owner with a new team name, like Albany Firebirds, that's a little bit different situation. You can do a little bit of research. You can see that Albany Empire prior to that were well run. So just think about that stuff when you're making decisions. But we're going to transition over to the NAL a little bit. And like I said, we're going to talk about the unfortunate news that came out of the NAL in 2024, right before their season. They actually lost 2 teams. One of the teams I kind of expected, to be completely honest, as much turmoil was around Topeka last season, I expected them to make it through 2024 for some reason. I guess just because there wasn't a whole lot of noise this offseason. But I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Let's start with Gabriel. Were you expecting either of these teams to end up dropping out this early or this late in the game?
Topeka, as much as we had some clues from last year, I didn't expect it. I talked to Coach Laughlin probably on a weekly basis. Him and I got to be really good friends from whenever I was at Billings with him. We still talk now. I'm not sure if you guys know, he wound up with Duke City. So he's there, coaching their D line, which, fantastic. I'm so happy for him to be somewhere where he's appreciated. But it came as a shock to him. And if it comes as a shock to the head coach that's living there, I think that says a lot. He had a full roster signed. He was going and doing, meetings with sponsorship, for different companies and stuff. And that was going well. But I guess, the bigger thing was he wasn't getting feedback from the ownership group. And even whenever it came down, time to fold, he heard it from a player first who had heard it from social media. He didn't even get to hear it from the ownership group. So, it's really unfortunate. There's a lot of guys. If you ever had a conversation with Coach Laughlin, you'll know he's the real deal. He's been there, done that. And he had assembled a really good team there. And, a good portion of those guys got to go somewhere else. But there's a lot that didn't. A lot of guys that passed up other opportunities because they believed in him and believed in the team. And that's always the dark side of it, right? Like, you don't want these players to be without a home, and timing wise, everyone else is starting camp, and they were literally a week away from camp. Like, there was guys that had flights from he had some guys coming back from Canada, just lost money. There's no refunds on that kind of stuff. So I wasn't aware of it. Remind me, Sam, who was the other team?
North Texas Bulls.
Oh, that one I can say didn't come as a shock. I mean, no, no slight to them. I just, you just see the signs. When there's smoke, there's fire, type thing. From our side of it, if we're not getting, regular communication to where they're, I'm not saying everyone has to talk to us, but if someone on that staff isn't replying to a text or an email or a phone call or something and asking for player needs and stuff like that, if everything kept on getting directed to, oh, have them come to our tryout, have them come to our tryout. Well, you saw their tryout; they had about 6 guys there. Not good, especially when you're in the Dallas area. Um, so, I won't go too heavy into that situation because I'm not here to talk bad about anybody, but it wasn't a shock to me.
Yeah, that was the team I was alluding to when I said one of them wasn't too much of a surprise. Topeka, I just felt like they had a solid foundation underneath them. The team had been around for a couple seasons. They had everything in place except maybe the nets that they needed to have installed. So I felt like the out of pocket cost at that point had kind of already happened. So I guess I assumed that the rest of it would be taken care of just by default, but. I think what really bothers me about the whole situation, and I don't know all the inner workings. From what I've heard, the league didn't know until way too late, and that was really what boiled down to why everything unfolded the way it did. And if that's the case, I mean, all I have to say is, if you're the Topeka owners, why wait? Why wait? I mean, there's no shame in saying, hey, this isn't going to work for us. We're trying to figure it out, but we need some help here. If there's anything you guys can do to kind of assist us along the way to make this work, at least through the next season, sometimes that's what you got to do. And sometimes as a league, that's kind of what you have to do. You have to step up and help those teams and trying to help them find a solution. And I'm not saying that, it's any one party's at fault. I'm just questioning the timing of everything. I mean, I feel like this whole situation maybe could have been avoided had this been told to the people that needed to be told to, way back in January, or not in March when we're about to kick off the season. But hindsight's 2020. So I mean, sometimes things pop up, the situations change. So I'd like to give everybody in the situation a benefit of doubt to a certain degree, but I have to question that timing. Any thoughts on that, Ducon, yourself?
Just kidding. Yeah, I do have some thoughts on it. I mean, there's a lot more to it as far as the timing goes. Yes, there was something that completely blindsided the two owners that did have Topeka in hand at that time, from a legal standpoint, that made it to where those owners just had to go. And the NAL, they did the right thing, and they tried everything they could to get other owners interested before kickoff. There were interested owners, and the issue came down to the board of directors getting together and saying, "Hey, there's not enough time. We're so close to kickoff. There's not enough time for us to transition to new owners and have them be competent and knowledgeable enough to actually make it through the season." I think that Topeka is still a strong market. I think the fan base is there, and I think the NAL is going to have a team there next year. So I'm not worried about them. It's just knowing what I know about the situation. The NAL did the right thing on their part. The timing of it, yeah, as hard as it was for Kerry Laughlin and the players and whatnot, it sucks that the timing was what it was, but it had to happen, for lack of a better word. As far as the North Texas Bulls go, again, I wasn't surprised about that. I like the team. I really like the team. I like some of the people there. I love Victor Mann. I think he's one of my favorite people, and I just feel gutted for him that they've tried to get on the field time and time and time again, and it just isn't happening. Arena availability, they couldn't secure an arena, among other things, and I hope to see him again. I hope to see the Bulls rise from the ashes, but again, I have to stand by the NAL's decision, and they had to move on with teams they felt confident would finish the year.
I completely agree. I mean, I think it's a better look to lose these teams before the season than it is mid-season. No matter how you slice it. But with these two teams going away, that created some significant scheduling challenges, as we all know. So I wanted to get everybody's thoughts on the schedule. Obviously, they had to get very creative to make this all work. And I don't know if this is based off a 7-team schedule or an 8-team schedule. I know they had multiple different options in place when everything unfolded, just to be prepared. But in this particular case, we saw a lot of interleague opponents or non-league opponents come in and be added to the schedule. But in my particular opinion, there's one game that really sticks out to me about all these non-league opponents, and that's one of the very first ones, and that's tonight's game, and that's the Cedar Rapids River Kings going against the Colorado Spartans. So, how often do we get to see two of the, for lack of a better term, and I mean no disrespect to any other indoor football leagues out there, but two of the premier indoor football league teams going against each other in an interleague game? I personally think this is a really cool situation, and I honestly hope a lot more of that happens in the future between the NAL and the AIF, assuming both leagues continue to exist in separate manners. But what are you guys' thoughts on this game? I mean, Ducon, I see you pumping your fist, so let's go to you first.
Well, from a fan perspective, I think it's one of the coolest things ever. I'm really excited about it. I just want to see how they match up. Plus, I know that I know that Fred Shaw in Colorado, I know that he knows how to assemble a roster. He's got a lot of grit, and his defense can fly. Like they hit hard and they can fly. And I also know that Darren Speedy Clark, the Cedar Rapids coach, throughout his career has been very offensive minded, and his roster is loaded with offensive talent. They put up 87 points in their game against the Missouri Falcons last year, which is a Cedar Rapids River Kings franchise record. And so I'm excited because you got a really fast offense versus a really fast defense on the one hand, but you also have an AIF versus an NAL team, which is exciting. However, I was listening to a conversation between Harrisburg Stampede owner Jay Coble and Columbus Lions owner Casey Smith, where Jay Coble said, I'm not excited about this at all. I think it's a bad move because it can make one of the leagues look bad. If either team just completely blows the other team out, the team that loses, their whole league looks like they have a less talent. And so from their perspective, I kind of get that. I don't want either one of them to just get blown out by the other one, and then there be this conversation about, wow, the talent level in the NAL is way better than the AIF, or vice versa. So some people like it, some people don't, but I'm a fan of it. I'm excited to see it.
That's a good point that I had not thought of. Krish, I mean, what are your thoughts on this one?
So there's two things that is going to happen, right? Colorado's either going to blow out Cedar Rapids or it's going to be a close game, right? Like, Cedar Rapids is not blowing out Colorado. That's no disrespect that my boy Speedy and my boy Coach Bartley, like, I love those two, but, it's just the way it is. Like, show me a DB on Cedar Rapids that can cover my boy Steve Newbold. There's no DB on Cedar Rapids that can. So I think size-wise, they don't really match up well right now. That being said, I watched Verlon Reed. I love Verlon Reed. He's a great quarterback. Verlon Reed hasn't played against a professional team in 2 years, so that's another thing. Is he ready to get back into that level of competition? That defense is young. They have guys who are 21, 22, 23. The oldest guy on that defense, I think, is 25, I want to say. Like, they have a really, really young defense. So it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I hope Cedar Rapids is able to compete. But when I see stuff on Facebook about them saying, oh, we're going to blow Colorado out by 40, and we'll talk about another coach that talks all that in the IFL later. But, when they sit there and say that, it's so disrespectful. And they're not ready. They're not ready for Colorado at all. I believe that. So
I will agree on that front. Obviously I'm a little biased with the Colorado. You see the Broncos stuff over my shoulder. Gabriel, what are your thoughts on this game?
I didn't know about this game until y'all mentioned it, and it made me really excited to watch. So with Colorado, I can speak on them a lot because I've seen them assemble their roster. That roster is no joke. If you saw them play, that on paper translated to the field perfectly. Coach Brooks, Tay is a really good friend of mine since we were both, in Billings together. He is the real deal. He's himself is young. I mean, these guys are probably, you know, his age, and like Krish said, a little bit younger, but and I don't know a ton about Cedar Rapids. I know initially they were very eager to go out and sign like the top of the top, and it's not that situation. So we didn't have the top of the top sign there. But at the same time, you know, I'm confident they have a good roster, and we'll kind of see how that looks like. Um, I'm not a betting guy. I don't really bet. I don't like losing any money, whether it's $5 or anything. So, but I guarantee you, whatever bet you want to put down, they're not going to score 80 on Colorado. And I think that is a good point that Ducon had about the actual, matchup about, one team blowing the other out. You can say what you want to say about it creating disparity in those levels, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, not every NAL roster is stacked like Colorado's, and they should go and blow somebody out like that. That's kind of what's supposed to happen. Now, if Cedar Rapids keeps it close, like Krish said, that's concerning. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it's just one of those things where any given Sunday, they took them lightly, and Cedar Rapids just played their best ball, and that happens. But yeah, I mean, it's for me, that just makes me excited to watch that game and kind of see how it goes.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited about this game, and Spartans, watch out! I might be there in person. We'll see. I'm really trying to make that happen tonight. So hopefully it works out. I might take my oldest to the game as well. The main thing that came out of Colorado's first game was obviously the complaints that they did not have goalposts and nets in the arena at that time. I will tell you from personal experience, there has not been indoor football in the state of Colorado in, I think it's been 7 seasons. So that stuff is not just waiting around for a team for 7 years for anybody, So, I mean, these were things they had to go acquire. I'm sure, we haven't even had a team since the Crush. So I'm sure all that stuff was sold off years ago. So for that, I will say that it was a little disappointing. Don't get me wrong, but it was a preseason game. It made it a little bit more exciting to see them all do 2-point conversions. And from everything I'm hearing, the goalposts and nets will be in place for tonight's game, for anybody wondering. So on that note, I'm very excited to see this game. I had not thought about the fact that there could be a large disparity in talent, and maybe that's just because of my overall lack of knowledge on the rosters that are in the AIF right now. But I'm currently, I see a team in Colorado that I don't see many teams competing with them in indoor football in general. And obviously, like I said, I'm biased. I live in Colorado. This is my team. I finally get to root for a team in my state for the first time in a long time. So I'm pretty excited about them, but I'm also a realist. And so, you look at guys like Trey Threat. That dude was in the USFL a couple seasons ago. You look at Patrick Isbell. He was in the German Football League, did a lot of good things over there. Ladarius Skelton, that dude is a weapon. I don't care what position you play him at. Their quarterback, I'm blanking his name right now.
Whitaker.
Thank you, Whitaker. He played extremely well. In fact, I thought Skelton was going to start at quarterback, but Whitaker made them force Skelton into a utility role, which might be the best of both worlds, to be quite honest. I mean, Steve Newbold, that dude's he's going to be good no matter where he goes. He's just that kind of player. And then I'm blanking his name, but is it number 5 or number 3, the defensive back?
Yeah, number 5. His name is D Mays.
Thank you.
He's a dog.
Yeah, he had a really, really good game first week, so I'm excited to see him the rest of the season. And like I said, I just have a general lack of knowledge on who's on Cedar Rapids roster currently. That doesn't mean I'm discounting anything they're bringing to the table. Coach Clark, I'm a big fan of you. I think you bring a lot of energy to the table. And I'm not opposed to him saying he's going to come in and drop 80 on Colorado. We play the games for a reason. You never know what's going to happen. But at the same time, I'm not opposed to it because I like the fact that he's fiery. I like the fact he's trying to fire up his team and bring them to play. And, we want to see their A game. I want Colorado to have a tough game. I don't want them to win easy games all season long. So I want to see a test right out of the box. And I also want this to be a good game that showcases both leagues. So like Ducon said, if there's a blowout one way or the other, it's going to show a disparity in talent. And nobody wants that. Excuse me. Go ahead, Ducon.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say that I did interview Speedy just a couple days ago about this game, and he was like, I just signed a running back that was dropped from the British Columbia Lions. I tried to get the guy's name. He says, oh, it's going to be a surprise to everybody. Speedy's got some good connections, and I did look at his roster, and he does have a few dogs on there. So I expect them to compete a little bit. But yeah, Fred Shaw has actually assembled one amazing roster. So it's pretty hard to compete against Colorado.
I would agree. And not to mention that, he was the NAL Coach of the Year, was it 22? So, I mean.
I think so, yeah.
That's a good staff there, too. I'm a huge fan of Tay Brooks. Anybody who's watched this channel knows that. He's been on 3 times, I think, already. He'll be on again before the season's up. But transitioning over to the IFL, although our guest did not show up, I'm going to start us off with this real quick video because I think it really plays up the intensity of the IFL indoor football in general. But we can go ahead and keep talking over this so there isn't much volume to it, although there will be a little. We were supposed to have Arsiah McCorker on today, who is the man who returned this kick right here.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, just unbelievable player. This is rookie season. And here's another one. Just unbelievable player.
Wow.
He's an exciting guy to watch. I honestly, before we started the show, I put out posts on social media asking about players, coaches, front office executives, anybody who wanted to come on the show. And he was one of the guys who reached out. I didn't know much about him. I'm not a big college football fan. I primarily stick to the professional game. So I hadn't heard much about him because he's a rookie this season. Well, he made a debut, scored 3 touchdowns in his first game, 2 on kick returns. I definitely think everybody knows who he is at this point. To me, he's kind of this year's Charles Heaton, who was a very standout wide receiver and kick returner for Frisco last season, who is now in the CFL. So I see the same path from McCorker, but I'm curious, this year in the IFL, there's been a lot of turnover at the quarterback position. I actually wrote an article about it recently. A lot of people thought there was going to be a drop-off in the quarterback talent, but I personally don't see that as of yet. You guys obviously have watched all these teams so far that have played games. What are your thoughts on the quarterbacks that have left for other leagues? Is the IFL going to see a drop-off in talent here, or are we going to just see the next generation of quarterbacks take over? Let's go to Gabriel first.
Yeah. So first, before I go on that tidbit, that poor kicker that kept kicking to that kid is a pro level athlete, and he's a rookie. Dalton Evans, Lord help him. I saw that first one, and I was like, okay, it's fine. He's not gonna kick directly to that to that guy again. We're gonna start seeing some squibs. We're gonna start seeing some placement. And then it happened again, and I texted his agent, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm sure he's gonna get, plenty, chewing out on the sideline, but be sure you reach out to him and lift him up because that's probably not gonna be a fun night for him." But yeah, I mean, I think you're right, Sam. I think that the latter part of that statement is we're just gonna see what's next. We can't have these quarterbacks that turn into vets in this league forever. You're going to have a few situations where you see that. Last year with Sioux Falls, you kind of saw Lorenzo Brown, right? His name. I mean, he was one of those guys that did that. I saw that he kind of signed as an emergency quarterback this week too, because Snead is banged up. So that was interesting. But I think it's great. That's what this league is supposed to be, is a chance for guys to come in and prove themselves and hopefully transition to something higher. We've seen guys move up to the CFL. We hopefully will see guys move into the UFL and beyond. But with the veteran rule that they have in the IFL now, that's what they're pushing for. That they need new blood. They need it comes with a new fan base and different things like that. The kid last night from Sioux Falls versus who last night? Quad City. The quarterback from Quad City last night played his damn ass off. Sorry for the language, but man, that kid, big kid, smart, efficient, can run a little bit. And I don't know anything about him. He may have already been in the league, but I mean that he played like he had been there for a long time. So you want to see a lot more of that. I know a lot of these guys moved over to the arena game, and good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you want to say on that side of it. But that's exciting. That gives these guys a chance to come in and showcase what they have for 16 weeks, hopefully, and keep moving up.
Yeah, he played really good. That's Judd Erickson. He's from San Diego, ELF. But I felt like he grew up, during the game for sure.
They keep playing now.
He played a great game. And no slight to Billy Haw, who also had a decent game. I believe that was his first start, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, Ducon, what are your thoughts on the quarterback play overall in the league, and losing veterans like Charles McCollum, Jonathan Bain, Drew Powell, guys like that to the AFL ultimately?
Yeah, I think Gabe nailed it. I mean, I think we're going to just see another generation of great quarterbacks rise up. You get those guys that come in that are hungry, like Caleb Barker of NAS. That first year he comes in, nobody knew what he was going to do. And he led his team to the national championship after a 1-15 season the year before. But yeah, I really think that on paper, it looks like there will be a drop-off at the quarterback position as far as talent is concerned. But what you have is a lot of guys that come in hungry and humble, meaning they're teachable, they want to learn the game. And those guys that will do that, you will see them become all-stars overnight. But then you see a lot of veteran guys that believe that they're the best in the game come in and beat their chest, and then they're not teachable. They don't think that there's anything else that they can learn. They may be oozing with talent, but they tend to drop off. They tend to get outshone by the guys that come in humble and hungry. And so, yeah, I do think that I do think maybe in these first 3-4 weeks, there may be a little bit of a noticeable difference in the quarterback play. But I think these guys are going to adjust, and pretty soon they're going to be looking really sharp.
One thing that was not on the schedule for today's topics that I want to get everybody's thoughts on, and Krish, before we get to this topic, I will get your thoughts on the quarterback play as well. Don't worry. But I wanted to cover another subject that I think needs to be covered. But do you guys think that the AFL and IFL can coexist? And we'll go to Krish first. Krish, go ahead and give us your thoughts on the quarterback play, and then you can go ahead and just jump over to the IFL, AFL question.
Yeah, Ducon kind of hit it on the nail. A lot of these older guys, a lot of these guys who are free agents, they think they can never be where their feet are at. They're always looking at the next level. It's the end all be all. The IFL the worst. I can't believe I'm here. I love when a young guy who is talented from the IFL, is posting up on their Instagram, like, so thankful for the opportunity. Guys who are thankful and guys who are where their feet are at are guys who go the farthest. I've seen NFL players come through. I've seen them struggle. Like Jacoby Jones is a perfect example of that. He wasn't too great when he played in the NAL. But so you can kind of see it. that kick returner, RC, he's amazing. He's from Florida. They make the Florida boys different. When you're from Florida, you're immediately talented. So I'm loving him. He's from Jacksonville, so he went to HBCU. So he's really, really talented. I can't wait to see what he does for the rest of the season. The quarterback play, I think, is young. I think it's going to take time to develop. You're not going to necessarily see those guys put up EJ Hilliard numbers day one, and that's a little hard. I want my quarterbacks to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns a game, but like last night, they really slowed the game down for Billy Hall. They really did, and that's a concern of mine going forward. Like, we have to open it up a little bit if we want to stay competitive with different teams. You can't just throw slant routes and digs all game. You gotta go quick. So, but the IFL and the AFL, can they coexist? Yes, I believe they can coexist. I believe the IFL, certain owners in the IFL are kind of about that, but yeah, it can definitely coexist. I think more football is good for everyone. I think we need to look at the end of the year. We need to look at all these leagues, right? The 4 main leagues, and see if we can have a merger. Or I know everyone says a merger every year, but we need to figure out how we can kind of, instead of having 4 leagues, I think there's a different solution. I think there's a better solution, to be honest. But the IFL and the AFL are 2 premier brands. I think the AFL is going to do great. I know a lot of people are skeptical, but I'm really excited to watch it. And the IFL is always going to be here. So they'll be around for a while. There's too much talent out there, for sure.
I would agree. There is definitely no shortage of players ever. So, we could have 20 million literally leagues and probably still be able to find players for each one. Getting some comments. This is a good one, and I was wondering, Ducon, you might have some insight on this because of speaking to Coach Clark recently. But Casey asks, what rules are they using in the AIF and NAL game? Does anybody know?
Yes. They are using the NAL rules. Colorado's essentially sponsoring Cedar Rapids trip to Colorado, so it's considered an NAL game for them. But yes, NAL rules. A running back does not have to be in the backfield, the snap. In the AIF, he does. They have two men in motion. Most of it's the same. The deuce is the same, AIF and NAL, according to Speedy. So yeah.
Does the AIF have nets? I don't recall seeing them.
I don't think so, but they still have the deuce rule.
Gotcha. So, I mean, realistically, it's pretty minor changes, it sounds like.
Pretty minor. Yep. But tight end is available at all times. Yep.
Interesting. And Casey also says the IFL is the superior league. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even remotely hesitant to say that. The IFL is the superior league. There's a reason why they've been around for 16 years. But with that being said, they are also the example of how to get there for every other league that is out there trying to make that leap. So I just want to say that, we're not saying that any one of these leagues can't get there. The IFL has just been doing it longer and has gotten to the point where a lot of their teams are very stable. I don't go into an IFL season with questions on which team is going to not make it through that year. And I mean no disrespect to any other league. That's just the reputation the IFL has built at this point.
Yes.
But real quick, let's get some final thoughts on this. And I actually didn't get your guys' ideas. So let's go to Ducon real quick. Do you think the IFL and AFL can coexist?
The short answer, I think, is yes. And that they will coexist and actually both be very, very good for the industry if neither one of them touts, we're the Premier League, we're the Premier League, we're the Premier League. There has to be, between the leagues, there has to be a spirit of camaraderie, a love for the industry, a love for the game. And the moment either league decides we're going to be in competition with each other and we're going to speak against the other leagues, we're going to try to get them to give up or anything like that, they don't have the industry in mind. And so I definitely think that they can coexist, but there has got to be more maturity from ownership groups, coaches, there's got to be more maturity. There's got to be an acceptance that, hey, these guys are trying to make it too. And there's got to be a spirit of, let's not try to take somebody's market, or let's not try to take somebody's arena. Just have conversations. Don't talk behind each other's back. Just talk to each other. Talk to each other's face. Say, how can we grow this game together? And it will be better for everybody if they do.
Amen. Like, I'm literally going to end up having to clip that and make that a short, that speech right there, because there's nothing stopping it. And I actually, Casey, I will give him that credit. He is a big proponent about every team, every league having the effect that their actions have on the game in mind. And so shout out to Casey for that as well, because he truly thinks about the legacy of the game when he makes his moves. So I do want to say that about him. I know a lot of people aren't his biggest fan because he's very vocal about a lot of things. I personally like that. So him and I have always kind of butted heads, but gotten along. I've always been a fan of him as a person. But Gabe, what about you? I mean, you see it from a different aspect of things. You get to see the agency side. You've been a coach. Do you think the AFL and IFL can coexist?
Yeah, I think Ducon said it perfectly. I mean, it's you have to have competition, and it's not like the NFL where you have a monopoly over the highest form of football at a professional level. It's not that. But from our side of it, it's opportunities for players. There is a ton of players that need these opportunities, and there's even more now that the UFL is the UFL. You constantly see the CFL tryouts, even just indoor tryouts. You're going to see. I mean, I was at the Philly Soul one a few weeks back. We had 160 something guys show up, and that was, I think, 90 or so pre-registered. Those are all guys that still want to play, and that's just that region of of the country. You extrapolate that across the entire country, you're going to see a lot of demand. And if I knew it better, I would probably speak on it better. But there was something that I either saw at work or was in a meeting or something, but it was talking about Coke and Pepsi. It was talking about this business that, Coke, everyone loved Coke there. That was what they sold. They noticed their vending machine had Coke, and it was always running out. So they stocked it full of Coke. But they noticed that the vending machine down, opposite side of the building had Coke and Pepsi, and they actually had better sales of Coke in that one than they did in the one with just Coke. And that tells you a little bit about having options, about having autonomy in the world, and just competition. Coke and Pepsi don't live in worlds where they have to be solo and kind of exist without the other one. They know they have to have the other one to be able to exist at the level that they do. So I think that's something that needs to be developed when it comes to both leagues. I've heard Commissioner Hutton speak on it a little bit with his interview, through the AFL stuff. I know.
Put that down.
I know Todd with the IFL, hasn't been as vocal about it, but there's competition, and you're fighting for the same pool of players, and you're taking your transactions off the internet for a reason, because there's some pulling back and forth, but it's absolutely necessary. It has to be there.
I would agree. I need to wrap this up. I have another interview to get to, so I apologize for everybody. We did run a little bit later than expected due to some of the guests not showing up. Hopefully I can get these same guests on for next week's episode, and we'll go ahead and try and move forward with them. But for anybody who's tuning in right now, we really appreciate you watching. Make sure you hit the like button, comment, subscribe, follow us wherever you're watching. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you check out Arena Football Statement. I will say that as many times as I get an opportunity to. His channel is amazing. Realistically, he's probably one of the greatest content creators when it comes to arena football. That's honestly why we like to have him on. Ducon, I'm not just saying that for no reason. You honestly are the best. Krish, thank you as always for coming on, man. You're Mr. Reliable. I know I can count on you every week to do a million different shows and bring insight to a lot of different players. Gabe, thank you so much for coming on as well, man. I mean, your impact on the industry may be a little bit more behind the scenes, but honestly, if people aren't aware of who you are, they should be, because honestly, whether it's the players you send to teams or your individual coaching career, I think you've had a large impact on multiple different teams. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I don't want to keep you too long, but I have to ask the panel about this because this is it's bothering me a little bit. It's IFL. So, San Antonio, right? Gunslingers, the Holy Spirit, Tomanos. It really bothers me when he sits up there on his coaching show and he talks about beating teams like San Diego or teams like Duke City or teams like Tucson by 30, 40 points. As someone who's involved with an IFL team up here in Mass, I take offense to that. I take a lot of disrespect to that, and it doesn't sit well with me, the fact that you can just run your mouth about a league that you never won in, so I got a lot of boys in San Antonio. I want them to be really successful, but saying you're going to blow out teams by 30, 40 points is not okay. What do you think about that, Ducon?
He's got a lot of confidence. I think everybody says it. I just think Tom Manas will say it live in front of everybody. I think everybody out there saying, at least to other people, we're going to blow this team out by 30, 40 points. I don't know that I mean, my advice would be don't take offense by it. Yeah, some people could, but I can guarantee you every IFL team looks at that and says, oh yeah. They use it as bulletin board material. The coaches are gonna go to the players and say, this is what this guy said he's gonna do to us. And if anything, the only advice I would give to my friend Coach Tom Manas would be, don't say it out loud. You're just gonna motivate them even more. That's it.
Oh, and I've already screen recorded everywhere where he said that. I'm putting a little montage together for my squad. Like we take offense to that, man. We're not gonna let him talk all that. The more guys talk, the more they let their leash go shorter and shorter. So it's not good to talk, What about you? What do you think about that, Gabe?
I've never actually had a direct interaction with Coach Manas, but I've coached with guys that have coached with him, and it just makes sense that's the kind of individual that he is. And you're right, Ducon. I mean, yeah, I would much rather hear that directly from him, where he knows that people are going to hear it, than to hear rumors of it or whispers of it being behind someone's back. That I think he's originally from Texas, and he is back in his element, and he's gonna, if there's a common thing now, I mean, I don't know. I'm not in touch with the athletes right now with what they're saying, but there used to be something saying, talk your talk, without getting into the expletives. Talk your talk, and that's what he's doing. He's talking his talk because he knows that his team is going to feed off of that. And if you've seen the way that he's coached in the past and the kind of success that he's had, he's earned the right to be able to at least say it. And that's the easy part. Now you got to go back it up. So, we'll see how that looks whenever they on the field.
I agree with both of you. I think San Antonio is going to be really good. I think, I love Coach Fuller down there. I think he's going to do great things with that offense. But, kind of final thing before we close out is, IFL today, Massachusetts Pirates, Jacksonville Sharks, Coach Gibson, returning to Mass. I haven't seen him in 6 years. I can't wait. How are you guys feeling about the game? We'll start with you, Gabe.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how that plays out. I think Coach Gibson knows exactly what he's doing. he's put together a pretty good roster. We've had some guys that have come through his doors here since they started recruiting. Some guys that didn't make it, and I know what level of player those are. And if they can't make it there, that tells me they, hopefully have a pretty high level roster that they're going to compete. So, it's these are the times that we've been waiting for. As soon as these people, these teams joined and the stabs were announced and everything. This is what it all kind of culminates to. So I'm the type which is like, let's line it up and see what happens. Let's put that product on the field and hopefully it's entertaining for everybody involved.
Yeah, how about you, Ducon?
Man, I'm excited. It's the battle for the high seas once again. 4 years ago, these teams matched up in the NAL, and when Mass moved the IFL, I remember saying to myself, man, they won't ever play the Sharks again. But here we are. That's happening now. Honestly, I think that the Sharks have an incredible roster, and so many people think that they're going to win this game. But Mass has had 3 years of IFL rules experience under their belt. Even more than that when you consider their coaching staff. And Jacksonville has a coach and most of their players that have not had a preseason game really to work out some of these rules and the rule changes and adjusting to it and stuff. So I'm actually taking Mass tonight. I think they're going to win this one. I'm excited to see it.
From what I see, I rock with my boys through light and day, but I think, our offensive line has to hold up. I mean, I feel like we have a really good O-line, but we just have to stay strong. It's going to come down to that. Jacksonville has the best D-line on paper I've seen in a while. I mean, Earl Jones, Anthony Johnson. On the DB side, they have Charlie Gorman. I mean, Earl Jones is 6'7", 350. I don't even know what he's going to look like in person. Like, that's crazy to even think about. So our O-line has to stay in the text of their defense, and we got to get the ball out quick. Got to get the running game going. I feel like we have a really good shot at winning this game. I'm picking us to win, obviously, but it's our first game at our new arena too, so we have a good setup, and the environment's going to be crazy. I'm expecting a sellout, so I think we have a great chance, but it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited.
Yeah, man, I'm excited too. I think that's a highlight game right there.
Well, guys, really great talking to you every Saturday. I appreciate you coming on, and let's do it again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Krish. Thanks, Gabe. Bye, everybody.
I'm a game changer.